The doorbell buzzed at 8:47 p.m., slicing through the canned laughter of a Friends rerun. I jolted upright on the couch, popcorn spilling from the bowl on my lap onto the faded gray cushions. Mark wasn't home. His last text glowed on my phone, time-stamped an hour ago. Stuck in a meeting, home late. Tax season turned him into a phantom, haunting his cubicle at the accounting firm instead of our Maple Grove split level. The house sat quiet, just the TV's chatter and the fridge's faint hum. I wasn't expecting anyone, not in my stretched-out sweatpants and a stained Target tee that'd seen better days. I padded to the door, the hardwood cool under my bare feet, and squinted through the peephole. 3 figures loomed on the porch, backlit by the flickering street lamp we'd complained to the HOA about. One waved, a big, goofy gesture, like we'd swapped casserole recipes at the block party. I didn't recognize them. Cracking the door, I kept the chain latched, a flimsy shield. "Can I help you?" "Hey, you're Mark's wife, right?" The guy in front grinned, teeth flashing under a mop of curly hair. His Hawaiian shirt screamed midlife crisis, loud against the beige siding. "I'm Dave, from the office. These are Jen and Carlos." He gestured to a woman in a crisp blazer, all sharp lines and sharper eyes, and a quiet guy clutching a 6-pack, his hoodie shadowing his face. Mark said to swing by. I blinked, the chain rattling as I gripped the knob tighter. "He did?" "Yeah, team bonding," Dave chirped, like it was the most natural thing, like Mark, who forgot our anniversary twice, would greenlight a Friday night invasion. I hesitated, Midwestern politeness warring with suspicion, then unhooked the chain. They barged in like they owned the place. Dave flopped onto the couch, sneakers scuffing the coffee table we'd snagged at IKEA. Jen prowled the living room, her heels clicking like a metronome, eyeing Mark's sci-fi books. Dune, Ender's Game, stacked haphazardly on the shelf. Carlos set the beer down with a dull thud, the cans sweating onto the cross-stitched coaster Mark's mom had mailed us last Christmas. "So, how long's this bonding thing?" I asked, hovering by the kitchen island, arms crossed over my chest. The popcorn bowl teetered on the couch arm, a casualty of Dave's sprawl. "Not long," Dave said, kicking back like he was at a tailgate. "Just unwinding after a brutal week. Mark'll be here soon." "Right?" He winked. But Jen didn't crack a smile. She pulled Dune off the shelf, flipping pages like she was hunting for hidden treasure. "He didn't mention this," I said, voice flat. "I'll call him, figure out what's up." I reached for my phone on the counter. Its screen still dark except for that lone text. Carlos shifted, subtle, but enough to make my hand freeze midair. His eyes, dark and steady under the hoodie, pinned me in place. "Relax," he said, low and gravelly, like a truck idling in the driveway. "Have a beer." He slid a can across the table, the aluminum glinting under the kitchen light. I didn't budge. Something was wrong. Dave's forced cheer, Jen's restless pacing, Carlos's quiet end. These weren't the paper pushers Mark griped about over meatloaf, the ones who hogged the break room microwave. These were strangers, and they were in my house. A thud echoed from upstairs, heavy, deliberate, like a boot stomping the hardwood. My breath snagged in my throat. Mark wasn't home. I'd been alone all night, hadn't I? Dave's grin flickered, then snapped back too quick. "Old houses, huh?" he said, leaning forward. "Always creaking, settling." "You know, that wasn't a creak," I shot back, sharper than I meant. Jen closed the book with a soft slap, her gaze locking onto mine. Cold, assessing, like she was sizing me up for a coffin. Another thud, closer now, halfway down the stairs. My skin prickled, goosebumps racing up my arms. "Who's up there?" "Probably nothing," Jen said. Her tone clipped, but her hand slipped into her blazer pocket, and I caught a glimpse. Something hard. Not a phone. Carlos stood, slow and deliberate, the beer forgotten on the table. The air thickened, heavy with something I couldn't name. I glanced at the kitchen, 6 steps to the drawer with the steak knives we'd gotten as a wedding gift. Could I make it? Dave rose, his bulk blocking the front door. Sit down, he said, not a suggestion anymore. We're all friends here. His voice didn't match the words. It was flat, final. My pulse hammered, loud in my ears. Friends don't show up uninvited. Friends don't turn your home into a trap. Dave loomed in the doorway, his Hawaiian shirt a garish smear against the walls we'd painted eggshell white last summer. Popcorn crunched under his sneakers, a gritty sound that made me wince as I backed toward the kitchen island. Jen circled the living room, her heels stabbing the floor like tiny ice picks, while Carlos stayed by the coffee table, his hoodie casting shadows over his face. My phone buzzed on the counter. Mark, finally? But Carlos's hand slid over it, casual as if he were grabbing a snack. Not yet, he said, voice low and rough, like gravel crunching under tires. My stomach twisted. These weren't coworkers. They were intruders wearing flimsy lies, and I was alone with them. What the hell's going on? I demanded, my voice shaking despite my best effort. Who's upstairs? Another thud rattled the ceiling fan, dust drifting down, catching the glow of the IKEA lamp we'd cursed while assembling. Dave chuckled, hollow, forced, like a laugh track on a bad sitcom. Relax, sweetheart, he said, spreading his arms wide like he was hosting a barbecue instead of cornering me. Old houses got character pipes, mice, the works. Bullshit, I snapped, adrenaline surging hot through my veins. Mark's not here, and you're not leaving. What do you want? My eyes darted to the kitchen. Keys on the counter, the fob with the panic button we'd never tested. Could it call 911? Could I even reach it? Jen stopped pacing, her blazer crisp against the lived-in mess of our home, scattered mail, a half-dead fern, Mark's gym socks, still balled up by the recliner. She held that black device now sleek, compact, with a red light pulsing like a heartbeat. Mark didn't tell you much, did he? She said, her tone sharp, corporate, like she was firing someone over Zoom, about the late nights, the meetings. She air-quoted it with a smirk, like I was the butt of a joke I didn't get. He's an accountant, I said, but the words sounded thin, a kid clinging to a fairy tale. Mark balanced books, bitched about tax season, brought home stale donuts from office potlucks. That was him. Boring, predictable. The guy who forgot to mow the lawn until the HOA slipped a note under the door. Right? Carlos snorted, cracking open a beer with a hiss that cut the air like a whip. Sure he is. He took a slow sip, eyes locked on mine, dark and unreadable. Ever check his glove box? Second phone in there, locked tight. My chest tightened, breath shallow. I hadn't checked. Mark was Mark safe, dull, the man who'd proposed over Olive Garden breadsticks, because he forgot the ring at home. But now doubt slithered in, cold and oily, wrapping around my ribs. Another thud upstairs, then a scrape, metal dragging on wood, slow and deliberate. Dave's grin slipped, just for a second, before he yanked it back into place. Enough games, he said, stepping closer. His cologne hit me. Cheap, woodsy, the kind you grab at a gas station next to the beef jerky. Sit down, we're waiting for Mark, and you're gonna play nice till he gets here. Waiting for what? I backed up, hip slamming the counter. The keys glinted under the light, 6 steps away. Jen pressed the device in her hand, and the lights flickered once, twice before steadying. A hum kicked in, low and thrumming, vibrating up through the floorboards into my bones. It wasn't the furnace, wasn't the water heater. It was something else. Upstairs, the scraping stopped, replaced by footsteps, slow, uneven, coming down the stairs. My mouth went dry, lips sticking to my teeth. Who's up there? I shouted, panic clawing up my throat, raw and ragged. Dave grabbed my wrist, not hard, but firm enough to root me to the tile. "You don't get it yet, do you?" he said, voice dropping low, all traces of goofy Dave gone. "Mark's not coming home late. He's not coming home at all, unless we say so." Jen stepped closer, the red light on her device flashing faster. Erratic. "He's been working on something," she said, cool as a PowerPoint slide. "Something big. You're the leverage, hon. Didn't think he'd keep you this clueless, but—" She shrugged, a cold, practiced move. "Men, huh?" The footsteps hit the landing, loud and final. I twisted, craning to see, but Dave's grip tightened. Fingers digging in. "Don't," he warned, his breath hot on my ear. The hum spiked, buzzing in my teeth, and the air turned thick, charged, like the moment before lightning cracks. Carlos pulled something from his jacket, a slim metallic tool, not a gun but not harmless either, its tip glowing faint blue. He nodded toward the stairs, stance loose but ready. "She's gonna scream," he said, flat and certain, like he was calling the weather. "Let her," Jen replied, eyes locked on me, unblinking. "No one's close enough to hear." The stairwell light flickered, and a shadow stretched across the wall, tall, jagged, wrong. Not Mark, not human. My knees buckled, but Dave held me up, his grip of ice. The shadow moved, slow and deliberate, and the hum roared, a mechanical growl that shook the floor. "Wanna know what's up there?" Dave whispered, his voice a blade against my ear. "Say hi to the real team player." My heart slammed against my ribs, drowning out everything but the sound of that thing, whatever it was, closing in. The shadow loomed at the top of the stairs, a silhouette too tall, too sharp, like a machine masquerading as a man. Dave's grip seared my wrist. Jen's device pulsed red like a frantic heartbeat, and Carlos stood poised, his glowing tool aimed at the dark. The hum drilled into my skull, a relentless whine, and I knew this wasn't about team bonding. This was about Mark, me, and a nightmare I'd never signed up for. "Stop!" I yanked free, stumbling back into the counter. The keys clattered to the floor. Panic button useless in the chaos. The shadow paused, its head tilting, mechanical, curious, a predator sizing up prey. Jen's smirk wavered. "What's it doing?" she hissed, fingers tightening on the device. "Fixing your screw-up," Carlos muttered, stepping toward the stairs. He fired the tool. A blue arc snapped through the air, striking the shadow. It shuddered, the hum stuttering, then roared back louder, shaking the walls. My vision swam, but I lunged for the kitchen drawer. Steak knife in hand, I spun, blade trembling but steady. "Tell me the truth," I shouted, voice raw. "What's Mark into?" Dave raised his hands, a mock surrender that didn't reach his eyes. "Easy, Tiger. He's not just crunching numbers. He's building tech. Big tech. Off-the-books stuff. That," he jerked his chin at the shadow, "is a prototype. Security bot. Mark's little project." "A bot?" I choked, the knife dipping. "In my house?" Jen sighed, pocketing the device, the red light dimming. "He tested it here. Remote access. Didn't tell you, obviously. We're the cleanup crew. Retrieve it before it goes live and trashes the neighborhood."